It's really a question for both education and industry.
So, that's where, at a big picture level, that's where the education is important. So we need folks who are flexible enough to tackle changing workloads. But when you get down to the specifics, the reality is we do need the technical workers to have a basic set of skills that can be re-vectored to other workloads if possible. And we also need to have the relationships in place so that if another workload materializes, we can leverage the workforce at other locations within the DoD. So for example, we'll bring technicians out from Robins Air Force Base, one of the other air logistics complexes, or from Tinker, one of the other out of the 3 air logistics complexes. We'll bring them to the Ogden complex to take on for 6 to 12 months if we have to, bring them out here temporarily. There's a very high cost to that. We're taking them away from a workload at that other location. We also need the relationships in place where we can turn to industry and offload that work to our industry partners if they have room to do that. So we need the public-private partnerships in place so that we can actually move workload around or bring workers onto Hill Air Force Base to take on those workloads. It is a huge challenge as leadership. Congress makes decisions about where workloads should be. Sometimes they direct, is it going to be out in industry or is it going to come organic inside the wire to Hill? Or the realities of the fight. So the F-22, high-end fighter, oh, that's never going to be used. That's for China. That's for a near-peer conflict. Oh, wait, it's flying every day now over the Middle East because it's such a great data node. It passes data like nobody's business to decision makers to prosecute things on the ground. So the F-22 is flying more than ever before, therefore it's wearing out faster than anybody thought it would. And we need those advanced composites and low observable technology, low observable coding skills to rejuvenate that aircraft fleet that's being used up quicker than ever before. But it does speak to the need for partnerships. We can't do it on our own. Whether it's spaces that are available for just-in-time innovation of applying technology with industry partners or applied research with academia, or it's a space where we can communicate to high schoolers who are going to graduate in a year or two, we really need you to get this certificate so that in a matter of months you can graduate and come right to an industry partner or come onto Hill and actually impact our workload. It is a huge problem. And it speaks to us trying to think strategically and being flexible, agile enough to address those workloads.
I'd like to add to that as well. We have some influx in our business where we needed to hire people really quickly, especially when it comes to software dev. So unfortunately, we needed to move part of our business offshore. So we went to the Philippines. That was not our choice. We did not want to do that. We just knew that as quickly as we needed people to work on some projects for our company, that we needed to go somewhere where we could hire quickly. So we went over to Cebu and we developed a part of our business over there that does software dev. We would rather have kept them here in Utah, and we would rather have had those businesses here. We could afford that, but we did do it offshore. I know you don't have that luxury to do that being in the military, but we did that so that we could keep up on top of our competitive advantage and to be able to keep our skill sets within our company.
Okay, education real quick, and then we're going to move on to 2 more questions.
So I was glad that Colonel Nolan was talking about super techs and the distinction between a super tech and a regular technician is the super tech has the background and the education to be flexible, to be repurposed, to be able to respond to those short-term workforce needs. In traditional higher education, when we hire instructors, we make a 30-year commitment in people. And so we are almost completely unable in the traditional model to respond quickly to workforce needs. There has to be a future 30 years down the road before we can really make a significant investment. Part of the reason why we started this conversation with the idea that education really has to be broader than just job preparation is that we are preparing students not for one career, but on average for 5 careers. And so the idea that we're just going to launch students in one direction and they're going to stay there, that idea is no longer true.
I agree with President White, and
we have got to work hard at maintaining this continuum of education. And one of the roles that UCAT has, as has been mentioned before, where maybe at the beginning part of the post-secondary education or even high school students coming to us, students need to be able to come and participate and get those skills, but we have to remain nimble. We have to be able to change as you come to us and tell us that you have this new contract, or there's this new demand, or we're falling short in the numbers that we need to make the industry, the business and industry work. And so working with each other, with our system and the higher education system and this more comprehensive and global approach, it's our job to be very flexible, to have the employers working with us as employer advisors all of the time to tell us what needs to change. And also, we all have to work on that pipeline. We've got to help students to understand how the ladder works, how they can get a certificate, a degree, and do that, but have people ready to start even when they're young.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question.
Susan, I want to pick up on the point about which of us is going.
We'll have you go first.
Okay.
You'll
Susan
be next.
Lavrakis, I'm with the Aerospace Industries Association. I do our workforce efforts. And I just wanted to pick up on this point about a systemic approach, a systemic impact, because that's frankly what our industry has been involved to try to help promote. Our member companies came to AIA back in 2006 and said, you know, we've all been investing in STEM education and workforce development separately for decades. How can the problem be as severe as it is when we're putting all this money and energy into it? Would you, AIA and NDIA, start getting people to communicate better and collaborate better at the national, state, and local level so we can have better results, rather than, as one of my colleagues, Jim Bliven at Innovate Educate, I don't want to take credit for her term, but random acts of STEM. We've got all these random acts, but they aren't really resulting in the workforce that we need. So our goal in holding these meetings is to drive toward more systemic change. My question for all of you is, we recognize our companies are going to do things for their own best interest. They're going to go after the specific workforce that they need in partnership with all kinds of educational institutions. But what is the role of other convening groups like the STEM Action Center, like Aerospace Industries Association, in having those more generic, systemic conversations that ultimately lead to bilateral partnerships? And then one more point about that is, we are actually holding a big event in DC on September 16th in partnership with the General Aviation Manufacturers Association and the Manufacturing Institute at the National Association of Manufacturers about the whole skills training issue, technical workforce, and should there be industry-wide credentials and certifications rather than each company going after its own specific niche? And I have that's a question for you, training institutions. Is there a role for something like that, or should be at a more case-by-case basis at the local level?
Okay, let's start with education.
Well, on the last question that was asked, the specific certifications versus the industry general certifications, that's something that we grapple with a lot. And we hear from our associations. The Utah Manufacturers Association, for example, has talked to us about this core set of skills that everyone in manufacturing needs to have. And we look at that, and we have elements of that across our 8 campuses across the state. And I know the system of higher education looks at that as well. But also we have to listen to our local employers, because in our case, our programs are regulated to the point through our accreditation processes that if we don't have a specific completion rate and an even higher placement rate into those programs or into those jobs, then our programs fall under scrutiny, and we have to take a look. We call it they're triggered. And that means that we have to make changes, modify, or at times we just find out that there are not enough jobs, or we don't have what is required. And it's generally there aren't enough jobs, and we either eliminate or severely curtail that program, focus our resources on something else that is really important in the local economy.
Anybody else from education?
I just had an interesting observation as we've been talking, the number of times technician has been used. And I guess I'll go back to a comment that you made about random acts of STEM. So as a public educator, I'm a little confused at the definition of STEM, a little bit, because does it mean science, technology, engineering, and math, or does it mean Hill Air Force Base needs electrical engineers and Boeing needs composite technologists? And so I think what we've seen public ed try to do is that splatter approach of, I'll give you a little science, a little math, and a little engineering, because I am not sure. Is it industry directed, or is it a more holistic umbrella? Because as I keep hearing today, there's one, and you said 7 jobs. We in high school, I know, without a doubt, as I've sat on committees, have spent more time on rigorous math, 4 years of science, having an intense research experience, and then we met with industry 3 weeks ago, and they said, after they saw our curriculum, which they were impressed with, said, for heaven's sakes, could you have more industrial shop classes? And we're going, really? We've been trying so hard to ramp it up, and what you really want is a variety. And so I think maybe a better definition of the need to the high school level, what do you really want high school kids in? More industrial shop classes, or do you need them in more calculus classes? Because those are 2 really different preparation programs for us to serve. It's 2 really different ideas. So I know it's supposed to be a little contentious, so one of my questions is, every industry has a different definition of what STEM preparation means. Maybe we do need some national help with us, because we keep thinking we're increasing the number of kids. I know it's seat time, but we are increasing the number of kids. 25,000 kids last year in Davis School District had concurrent enrollment credit. 6,000 kids took AP tests with an 80% pass rate. We are improving our numbers, but we're not helping you. So we kind of feel like we keep throwing stuff, and then we find out, oh, we really would have rather them been in better technical classes so that we could hire them right out or do that. So I guess one of my question is, I'm not sure I know what I'm preparing them for. And I've been doing what I think, but it probably isn't serving your needs well enough. Well, not probably. The supply and demand are saying, we at this level aren't quite sure what you need.
Okay, industry. Let's see, we have a response to that and her question.
Tackle that a little bit. I think the answer is more. I think the answer is more of everything, because industry's growing, the technical part of industry is growing, and so you're going to need to move the knob on how many students are interested in technology and want to have a technical profession, even if when they get out of high school they don't know exactly what that is, because the demand is going to be there. And right now, 10% or 15% of the students stay in technical fields. The reason that the demand is high and the supply is not there is because of that number. So the education system, I think, has to be able to provide for an education that provides enough technical stimulus, let's call it that, and education, so that more students want to be moving into technical professions. Industry is going to want students that at some point are very specifically trained, whether it's a chemist or a technician or a machine programmer. And even though industry is going to change rapidly and it'll be fluid, now you're hearing things like 3D manufacturing. Many of the core aspects of that are going to be the same jobs I just talked about. You know, you set up a factory, you're going to need a programmer. You're going to need a manufacturing engineer. So even as the industries are fluid, the core skill sets, I think, are going to be still needed. But I think the answer is you need more kids and students and professionals, even out of high school, that want to be in STEM professions and have that excitement to go into that, so that they can go into these DATCs and link up with industry and education more. So more of it all.
Did that answer your question? Did you get a good enough response?
Kind of. I guess I'm still curious about what's the balance between, like bilateral relationships between higher ed companies and multilateral conversations in the sense of what are
I have a quick comment on that. I think that could be one of the tasks that this group walks away with, is a task to help define. So One aspect of being a good leader is knowing when not to start something new, right? And so if I don't need to stand up something new because it's already out there, it's being done by the STEM Action Center, or it's being done by my local school district, or done by a consortium like Can You here in northern Utah, why should I stand up something new? Now, I might not have a need that's not being met, but I should go find that organization that can help be a change agent and influence them and contribute. So I hear what you're saying, these random acts of STEM. I mean, I've got my own STEM program. It's awesome. I think it's the best one in the state. And I know that Allison works really hard to coordinate with STEMAC and with other partners, and we send a lot of volunteers off of Hill Air Force Base to support other science fairs. Hill Air Force Base is not interested in holding its own science fair because we know that's going on in other places. So we should do a better job coordinating, and it actually gets to the definitions. That body or that consortium of the right folks working together can help make the definitions, can help be a clearinghouse for requirements, and we need to do a better job, defining our requirements as they start to change. We need to get the word out as soon as we can. I think that's something that could come out of this body, is deciding where is the nexus, where should leaders look to get that information, to communicate the requirements and get an indication back of where the resources are to address STEM.
Okay, so we've got the idea. Thank you for that. Certainly collaboration later on, but we've got to move to the next person. So go ahead.
Thank you.
I know you've been standing up there a long time.
I almost forgot my question. No, not really. Okay, so in the human dynamic of what you're saying, it comes down to you both have a set of needs. Industry, education, we have a set of needs. And believe it or not, they're a lot closer than it looks. But from the reality of enrollment management and outreach, where I come from, there's not enough students in the typical school system to do 60% by 2025. It's not there. We have to find a way to reach out and get. What's the difference between having a choice and not knowing it, and not having a choice? The results, there's no difference in the results. So we've got these, 75,000 immigrants that the UN's brought in, and that are between Ogden and Orem. How are we going to help? How are we going to take, from the industry point of view, knowing that education, we have stretched everything to the point of breaking? How can we partner, because we have the same needs, and help make these people aware? Well, the only way that I can see it happening is if we start younger. There's no way if you start a kid as a sophomore and say, okay, we need more math. We need your brain to cognitively mature, physiologically mature between now and the time you graduate. That's not going to happen. And so my suspicion is that either we're just pumping a lot of hot air about, yeah, we have needs, we have results, they're not being met, we're not happy, we're gonna go to Korea, or we're gonna go to the Philippines, or we're gonna go to the part of Utah that's not being served now. Okay? So what my question is how do we propose? The reality is we're here and the people are here, but how do we propose to start intervening younger? Industry and educators.
Okay, so education, let's start first.
So I think I understand what you're asking, and we have not really done a very good job, either as industry or as higher education, in communicating the excitement of STEM careers, the possibilities. I can't tell you how often during my career I've just stopped for a moment and thought, they pay me to do this. This is great. And that we have not been able to communicate effectively to all of the students in elementary school, junior high, and high school. The other thing that we have not really been able to communicate is the importance of coming to post-secondary education prepared. And we allow students to think that they can coast a little